So, so this is the first line says, remember the consciousness we all are. We already are conscious. We all are conscious beings. So one of the story that I would like to tell here is, so there is an actor who plays, let's say, Julius Caesar. And so he is acting every day. And, he comes on the stage, before coming on the stage, he puts on his garments and everything, and he comes on the stage and he plays, acts. And then the act is over, the play is over, he goes back to his dressing room. And then there's a kid there or helper there. He says, hey, come on, Julius, put all your things back in the box. So he's an actor. So he puts all his things in the back and, he goes back home. So he does this every day again and again and again. So, but one day he finds that the kid is being a little arrogant. So he says, hey, put your stuff in the box. Come on, Julius, he says. The actor who plays Julius Caesar gets really serious and he goes and smacks him really hard, the kid. And he says, hey, you don't talk like this to Julius Caesar. I'm the king. I'm Julius Caesar. You do not talk like that to me. And he keeps on his clothes and then he goes out on the street and starts yelling at people. And a bus comes by. He gets on the bus and this bus, so there's a driver in the front. The driver says, hey, pay the money. Where do you want to go? 1, 2, 3, 4. So so he says, hey, I'm Julius Caesar. You know where I have to go. So do not ask me for money. I'm the king. So, he looks at, the driver looks at him and he says, oh, I need to be calm here because this guy's crazy. So he says, fine, get back, go back, find a place, sit. And then he starts driving. So he gets all the people off the bus slowly. And then he drives the bus all the way to wilderness, somewhere far out. And it gets dark, by the night and stuff like that. So, and he says, okay, this is your stop. So he says, what is this? And he says, this is Rome. And so King Julius Caesar starts getting off the bus. So this, and then of course, he's lost in that jungle, but that's the point. So this story is supposed to represent this it's supposed to represent us, So we have put on an act about being us, and we think that is real. And we have been living in this, and that is, we have forgotten that we are all this darkness and we are living in this darkness, right? So that is what this first line is talking about. So we say, hey, now please protect both teacher and the student and from each other. Now the teacher here is Shankaracharya, right? So I'm not the teacher at all. So please make sure that they both are excited and interested in this, right? Please make sure both put 100% efforts. Please make sure we all remember what we learn. Please don't let us be malicious towards anyone for even a bit, because there is no learning if you're not. And the prayer ends with peace, peace, peace. There's 3 times there's peace. Why is it 3 times? So first is for my body. The point is, let my body parts be ready only when I need to respond to something. The other is for my mind, let my mind be ready only when I need to respond to something, right? So basically turn off the chatter so that I'm here. And for the hows and whys that arise within me, calm them as they arise. And if the chatter is too much and you're not able to pay attention, so one of the answers that you might remember in Katha Upanishad is the answer. The Lord of Death says is Om is the answer. So my very logical reasoning as to how Om helps is, it's kind of like you're going la 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 la. You're kind of like letting your mind chatter to be turned off, and that is effectively what Om does. You're supposed to Om. You do that. All your thoughts are supposed to kind of like vanish. So there's somebody trying to join. So and a lot of this is supposed to be in a way, to help you live life happily. Sort of as if you're listening to jokes from a stand-up actor. I'm not kidding. So this is supposed to be that, right? Life is supposed to be treated like that. So, Shankaracharya, he wrote a very, very famous short book called as Bhagavatam. I think I forgot the name right now. But he says the line that says, he says, "Fool, rules of grammar will not save you at the time of your death." So what grammar is he talking about? A lot of people who spend a lot of time on the grammar and the structure and, just the aesthetics and all of that stuff, they forget the essence of the teaching. And he felt that the Hinduism, that's what happened with Vedas and everything. And he was basically trying to wake up people. And so the real summary of this is research yourself while you are a human. So we have been given this ability that is different from animals or plants or trees and stuff like that. So we have this thing called as mind. So we have to use that mind to understand who we are, live our lives successfully, happily. And that's the point of life, is what he says. And he basically turns around all the definitions that we know of what reality is. Reality for us is what is tangible, what I can touch, or what universe is. We talk about Big Bang and all of that stuff, right? Life, what is life? What is death? What is God? What is meditation? What is yoga? Nothing has destroyed yoga more than once Westerners understood yoga, and then suddenly, people are, now you have Hatha yoga and everything in Santa Monica Beach here, right? So it is not about the contortions, not about the exercises. Exercises are key, but that's not the point. And then karma, right? We use karma, so it's like, karma will get them or something like that, right? But we really do not understand what that is. So Hinduism, really, the name of Hinduism is Sanatana, right? So that not Satan, but Sanatana Dharma. What that means is eternal. It's infinite. Uncovering the eternal self, or Sanatan self. So there is the Tao, and there is the that, which is something that we think we don't know. Like, somebody created us, and people believe a variety of things. People think nobody created us, we just are biological organisms, blah, 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 right? But we sometimes feel like, this is me. Or in this case, Tao, self, ego. And then we think our boundaries are me, my mind. These little circles basically represent my body, my clothes, maybe my house, my family, my kids, my friends. It could also be things that I know. We think I know about India, so India is in my universe. I know about Mars, I know about Pluto, so that is in my universe. I know about Einstein, you go back in time. I know about, whoever, XYZ. So there are all these things that define me, thou, or self. And they effectively, come alive, in a way because of me, because I know them, they mean something to me, right? Then there is that. So let's say you believe in God. This logic might help even without God. But let's say there's God. We think that God is somewhere out there. And what do we do with God is we also put layers around God. We say, hey, there's only one God. Or Hindus say, no, there are millions of gods. And, there are a variety of, there's no God, right? So there's all these different layers that we put on that. What Vedanta says is that thou art, right? Tat tvam asi. So you are that, basically. So he says, you who you're sitting, you are it. You are the God, you're the consciousness. Be aware of that. That's the point of it, right? So I'll take a pause here, and I'll just read this quote. The birds have vanished into the sky, and now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. So this is, I'm sure some of you have already read this, but this is interesting, right? So to kind of think about what the author is saying. He has vanished and the mountain remains. So while you guys are meditating, if you guys want to pause and talk, now's the chance. You can talk about anything, like the Katha Upanishad, the article. You might have read the article. If you want to expound on that, or some other thought that might have come to your mind. If you have any questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. On the one of the meetup page, the link was wrong. That's last time's link. So a lot of people joined late. I'm sorry about this situation. So you may miss some of the presentation, but don't mind if you something miss. I believe SK will be happy to repeat or something you are not very clear. And I really apologize for this mistake. So go ahead. And I think Nari has a question.
Yeah. Hey, SK, thanks for the presentation. But I have a burning question that I wanted to ask you about Hinduism. I know it. I've printed the article, gone through a little bit of it, but the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Upanishads. What is Hinduism really based on? Which one of the books?
That is a beautiful question. So Hinduism is really, there is no such thing as Hinduism. Hinduism, basically, that terminology was put into the mix by foreigners, right? So if you talk about people who were trying to build a culture, they would call it as a Sanatana Dharma. So what happened was, along the Indus Valley, there was a valley around near Pakistan and Afghanistan. And it was outside the border of Persia, the current Iran. Persia was a very flourishing culture back then. So then these dwellers who came around the valley, they started Vedas and all that stuff, right? So what Persians did is they said, hey, you guys pass the Sindhu River, whoever is living there, you are Hindus, or something like that, right? So they are, so that's pretty much how the terminology came about. But Vedas there's a lot of things, a lot of mysticism around it. There are lots of stories and lots of things. There's Mahabharata is considered as a history, and I have a thought on that, but we don't have to go there. And then what they do is, as they are presenting these things, really it is a investigation into who we are, through all these stories, and they are basically trying to investigate what is this? Like, why are we here? Why do we get angry? Why do we fight? Why are people so like going around, killing each other? Why are we happy? Why are we sitting here? Why do we die? Why do we wake up in the morning? Why do we sleep? Why do we dream? So if you read through these books, there is so much logic and depth. It is just mind-boggling. So there are a ton of books called as Vedas that happen to be the foundation of this so-called non-existing religion at that point. Okay, then what happens is there's a lot of these subsects starts happening. So from outside world, from America, we think Hinduism is a blob of one thing. No, it's not. So they have a lot of these subsects. So what they do is they take little things from Veda. So somebody says, hey, I am going to pray to Shiva. Yeah. And then the other guy says, no, I'm going to pray to Kali, another goddess. I'm going to pray this. And then sometimes they fight with each other. I'm not kidding. But they all come from the same books. So as this was happening, this started happening for thousands of years. In fact, that is why Buddha was very upset with this religion, right? So he went out of this religion. his philosophy kind of stems out of Veda. And so then Shankaracharya, the teacher, he basically says, he basically really brought the ideas, philosophies together, saying, guys, this is not about caste. This is not about, you keeping people slave. What does this terminology of slave means is different than what you guys have interpreted. So he really fought very hard. He was a very young kid when he got, really inspired, and he did this. He died pretty young. He was 32 when he died. But he has a very inspirational story, and all the things, the different the explanations that he has written are so relevant even today. And they basically knock down everything about Hinduism that we see, and people live that today too. People today, Hindus have forgotten about Vedanta. They don't live the life of a Vedanti, as they should have. If we all lived like that, I think we would not have these things. The whole point of this is there are no boundaries is the point. They're saying that we are infinite. A lot of our fights, or a lot of our struggle is because of me and you. There is this difference. And that is where Hinduism, they basically is about the fact that I'm infinite, you are infinite. We all are infinite. But there's no such thing as infinite, right? When everybody is infinite, there's only one infinite. We're all one. That's the point, oneness. That is oneness is the basic philosophy here.
Thank you.
Donna.
Hi.
Hi.
I just had in your write-up, the details, you have this comment, Vedanta makes spirituality logical. Could you just tell me a little bit more about what you mean there?
Yes. So, we have come to understand spirituality based on our convenience, I feel. Some people don't want to go to church because they have seen some stuff about church that they don't like. Some people don't want to go to Indian temples, Hindu temple, because they don't like some things about that, right? Because a lot of it is very ritual based. And so there is all these things, right? So, and as we are becoming more science oriented, we need a little more justification. We've gone on those days when only few people can read. Those used to be the days back then. Now everybody can read, everybody can understand everything. There are rockets that are being sent all the way, far reaches into the universe. No more do we treat sun as God or moon as God, right? Those days used to exist. Now we really have to think logically as to what does spirituality mean? And I think majority of us would understand what spirituality means. It's not just yoga. The way we have understood meditation is absolutely not meditation. We will cover some of that today. So that's my point. I think it is going to be very logical in the sense that you listen to that, and it really has nothing to do with you converting yourself to Hinduism. None of that. That is all BS. It is just a matter of how you live your life. Yeah. Did you have?
Okay, then one last clarification then. The translation that we read is a narrative. And I know the power of narrative, but you are saying this also has a scientific component?
Okay, science. Okay, so Donna, okay, fine, I'll just mention it right now. Actually, Donna, do you want to hold off? Because that you're literally stealing the heat, stealing the thunder. No, hold that thought. You're gonna enjoy it if you pause. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah. So going back to this analogy of the actor who's playing Julius Caesar for a minute, if the actor, while he's on stage wearing his costume and makeup and playing the role of Julius Caesar, if he holds before his mind, I am an actor on stage wearing a costume and makeup and playing the role of Julius Caesar, he won't be able to give a very convincing performance. Should we, as we go about our lives, always try to keep before our minds that we are playing a role, or are there times when we should sort of, lose ourselves in the role? Yeah, I guess that's my question.
Oh, that's a beautiful question. And the answer to that is you're going to realize it. You want to get lost, but get lost while you're laughing at yourself. Get lost enough to engage with the other person, knowing that other person is you. Okay? The person that you're fighting with is you. The person you're angry at is you. You are acting. Remember that. But then in that acting, think about how well these Oscar performers work in their role. They know that they're acting, but they put their 100% in it. And you know what? We are already doing that. Yet we are doing that, but we do not know that we are actors. So it's a kind of a reverse process. It's not that we want to act, we want to realize that we are acting. And then we participate still. Don't once you realize you're acting, don't just give up talking to people or engaging. That's not the point. You want to realize, engage it, and every time there is a situation that comes about where you have to something is going to happen. You're going to come. I have a couple of slides on that, so I will respond to that there. So okay, so there's a lot of material to cover. So in this little Lipo's statement, he is watching the mountain. He's staring at the mountain, and he is in meditation state. And he says, "I have vanished, and only the mountain remains." Beautiful statement, right? And this is effectively, in a way, Zen, Buddhism, all that stuff, right? I am nothing. The mountain exists. So I have lost means ego has lost. Now there's so many different ways to take that sentence. One other way is, let's think about this mountain. I am also carrying a mountain. In fact, what Vedanta is trying to tell us is, I have forgotten I. So what we think I am is not the I that Vedanta thinks you are. Okay, sorry if that's confusing, but we have forgotten ourselves, and it is that mountain that is all that remains. What is that mountain? So what is this human experience that we talk about, right? There is I. We are all familiar with that. I. What is I? I is not you. So we say, whatever you are, that's you. That's not I. I is what I say I. So it could be my nail, it could be my hair, my eyes, everything, right? You can start defining what your I is, and it can go on expanding. Once the hair falls down or the nail falls down, we never call that broken piece as your I, right? As long as it is with you, you say it's I. Whoops, sorry. And then there's death, right? So we know that I exist and there's death. These are the two truths that we cannot deny. There can be a lot of science around this, but we all can agree on this, that there's an I and then there's a death. And then there's all this stuff in the middle, right? We have roles, we have moms, we have sisters, we have mothers, daughters, brothers, husbands. So we have a set of names that we understand based on our language. So our internal universe, if you close our eyes, our internal universe is basically names. It's a bunch of words. And then there are forms. You open your eyes, there's forms, right? You see the monitor of the screen, you see things, the shape, all that stuff. And we start suddenly realizing, hey, this is my perimeter, this is my boundary. There are others. Some people believe in God somewhere out there. Some are afraid of things, or many are afraid, in fact, I would say, fearful of things. Many are suspicious. Now think about day-to-day life, not right now, day-to-day life. We are suspicious about people. And I would say 99% of the time, when something happens to us, or something happens in our lives, or something happens in our country, or our party, or whatever, right? We are always trying to find the blame with others, right? So we are never wanting to look within ourselves. We have ton of desires. We definitely have likes and dislikes, welcome to Twitter. Thoughts, ton of thoughts, or constant thoughts. And, people, a lot of meditation practices say, we got to kill the thoughts. And we're going to talk about that. That's not the way to go about meditation. Then what do we have? We have a lot of skills, right? We say, I means I have this, I'm a software engineer. So that's my skill, that's my job. I have a house, I have $1 million house. This is me. Or I might be an artist. I might be a musician. And we totally connect with that. We say, that's me. And, so we think that art is supposed to give me peace. That's not true. We see, if a scientist, that science is supposed to give me peace. That's not it. Pleasure, we are constantly, there's pleasure, there's greed, there's anger, there's a lot of our actions are based on that. There's impulsiveness, right? So we take decisions many times that, hey, we just want these. I need this. I need to buy this, or I need to eat this. I need to eat this ice cream, or and we also run into dilemmas, and we just don't know what to do with it, right? So this is effectively what a human experience is, right? So, so remember, within my space, or let's say my mind, when I close my eyes, I'm not seeing any forms, right? And inside that darkness, when I close my eyes, I still have words, ton of words. Those are the names. And when I open my eyes, there are forms. So there are these two universes, one within us, one outside us. So remember that we have two things going on. Ego, that's me. Again, throughout this lecture, we are going to talk about ego and ignorance. So ego and ignorance, there is no negative connotation with it in Vedanta. So we will talk about what that means. Ego just here means the so-called what we think as me, right? And so just take it that way. So there's nothing negative about ego. So yet we say humans suffer from ego, and humans like to judge others, So this is something that we do really best. We say, hey, it is easy for us to sit here when a friend comes along and he says, hey, my marriage is not going well, like something has happened, some bad thing is going on. And then we can, outside of that marriage, we can say, hey, have you tried this? Or, did you do this? Or if you really know that person well, you say, hey, you're going in the wrong direction. This is not good for you. Or, you can say something mean, whatever, right? So these two qualities we cannot get away from. So this is my take on getting into Vedanta, right? So there are lots of many ways to go into Vedanta, but this is my take on it. And we love to give advice. So this reminds me of Oscar Wilde. I think he was the best Vedantin that there was, by the way. He didn't know. And that's the best thing about Vedantins, is that if you don't know you're Vedantin, that's the best thing. But if you think you are reading this and you're going to follow this, you might miss it. So he says, I always pass on good advice. It is the only thing to do with it. It is never of any use to oneself, right? So this is typically us. We write these posts on Twitter. We say one thing to our kids, but then we behave something differently when we are by ourselves, right? Things of that nature. So two things, right? Ego and judging. So we can't get rid of that, right? So let's see what we can do with that. So we know that humans have ego, and humans like to judge others, this entity called as others. So let's talk a little bit about life. So now that we know about ego and others. So when we look at ourselves, be it in the mirror or just me, myself, we notice some lackness, right? Something is lacking. I don't have this Tesla car, or I don't have a swimming pool. I don't have this. Or I wish I was more expert in Sanskrit. Those things. Even education, even philosophy can be a lacking, right? So you want that. That becomes a desire. there are all kinds of gross desires and subtle desires. When I say gross, that doesn't mean dirty. Gross just means obvious, just the big, huge, tangible, gross object. And then there's subtle. Subtle are something that you can't see, but it exists. And that lackness builds a desire. Once there's a desire, we take action. Now, once we take action because you want something, it always leads to joy or sorrow. What does that mean? These joys and sorrows, they always are limited in their time span. They come and they go. They come and go. So if you think you're successful and you're happy, that happiness doesn't stay for too long. And then you suddenly feel, oh, I'm missing something. And then the life starts all over again. You see lacking and then you come back again. So what has happened in this type of lifestyle is no matter how genuine your expectations of life are, how much meditation you do and how much philosophies you read and all that stuff, right? The true happiness is something that doesn't need any of this, actually. So how do we get to those kind of actions, right? And how do we get away from this kind of life? So we know that there are egos, there are others, we judge people, and then we have actions that we take. Our day is consumed with actions. So what are these different actions that we take, right? So some people believe in God, some people do not believe in God. Some people who believe in God, the point of believing God is not that you want something. You don't go to God, hey, give me $1 million or, this and that. The point of God devotion is it's supposed to realize that you're smaller than this entity, whatever it is, be it Jesus, be it Christ, be it whoever, Hindu, whatever, I don't care. If you have this notion of devotion, the idea is you have to go in by being small, and that's it. No asking for anything to God, right? If you do that, and it is supposed to build your ability for concentration. Now, there are people who do not believe in God, right? They are regular materialists, all that stuff, and we all have professions, right? Now, professions can be quite misleading. A lot of our job, a lot of our work that we do are all the time ego boosters. What I mean by that is we get hurt easily if people say something to us, or we feel great when we get raised and things of that nature. But in all of this, what we forget is actual profession itself. What are we there for? What task are we at? We might do that, but that is not the main thing. We want the raise, or we don't want scoldings from the manager. That's why we do our job. Instead, we want to flip it around, right? So if we look at the action that we talked about, how the joy, sorrow, life happens, you can use your job as a mechanism to humble yourself. You might be a leader, you might be a manager, you might be a CEO, you might be whoever, it doesn't matter. You might be a janitor, it doesn't matter. You want to see how you're serving others. And if you keep that goal in your mind, your action becomes pure. That's the point of how to lead your life. So to avoid the burden of ego on yourself. Then we do exercises, right? So we go on runs. If there are runners here in the audience, you've heard of the rush that we feel when we run. We are in the zone. People who play basketball, they are in the zone. What does that zone mean? The zone means that you really turned off everybody. You have that music banging in your ears, and there's no wife, there's no husband, there's nobody. There's no world, there's no job. You're getting this endorphin rush, you're running, maybe you're doing yoga and all that stuff, right? So you're in a totally different space. There's no money, there's nothing involved there. There's no house, nothing. You're out in the open. That zone is the happiness, the bliss that we are talking about. And the idea with exercises is you are controlling thoughts and you're trying to come up with a balance in your life. And again, the exercise is shutting down the I that you know that is I. That is my family, my belongings, my actions, my joys, my sorrows, my job, all of that stuff is gone. But then you don't know who you are at that point, right? Yet you are in this happiness. Who is experiencing that happiness? That experiencer is the self. That is the consciousness that we will talk about. So these three things everybody is going through in some fashion, little or more. And we have to do this with the intent of concentration, humility, and balance in our life. When we do that constantly, it becomes a habit, it becomes a ritual for us, right? And it is effectively kind of like what Malcolm Gladwell says about 10,000 hours. We need 10,000 hours to really be the experts. You know, you talk about really successful people. They have elements of this in their day-to-day living. And then living life, joy, bliss becomes effortless. Now, with Vedanta, you can, once you understand what Vedanta is trying to teach, for some people, it can be just like that. It could be a switch. You realize your mistake. All it is turning on the light, electricity. You know, you just turn it on, boom, I get it. Wow. And you will notice a 180-degree shift in the way you look at everything. Zen, Buddhism, Christianity, Muslim, Islam, whatever, anything, you will have a brand new understanding, right? But even if you don't have it, that's okay, right? You can continue doing these three practices at the bottom and just understand the intent of that, and your life will become effortless. But in Vedanta, what we are doing is we are trying to find that infinite self, that zone, that bliss that we talked about. Learn about the true I in everything, right? And the mantra there is I am infinite, right? So what is the point of that, right? The point of that is we judge others because we think that they are outside us, right? And you know, we think that we know best. 100% of us think that we have good intentions. Everybody thinks. Nobody does any task with bad intentions. Even bad people, even evil people, they all have good intentions. Everybody has good intentions, okay? And we just think that the other person doesn't understand, right? So now let's turn off the world for a second. And we now what we are saying is we are going to judge. We can't get rid of judging, okay? We are going to judge myself. I am going to judge myself. How can I do that? The way I do that is we're going to see what this capital self is. We separate ourselves, our mind, ego, body from, you know, from the so-called our consciousness. And we can observe ourselves, you know, like in every action we do, we can start observing ourselves. And we can judge ourselves, right? You know, we are the best. We can have a conversation within our mind saying, hey, you know, boy, you're doing something wrong there. This is wrong. Or this is right, right? So there is that. And what do we do about the others? Well, the others are also conscious being, meaning that they are part of this self, this infinite self. They are just like us. They are basically us. When we really have a deep understanding of this, we will truly enjoy our lives. We will make lives easier for others. So focusing on ourselves, we can make lives easier. We are not going to expect others to become Buddha, or they will continue doing their own thing. That's not the point. We are not going to have any say in fixing them. That's not it. We are only going to fix ourselves, right? So some of this has come up in other philosophies in the past. So Paul, Joseph, did you want to say something?
I just have a quick question. It can wait till the end
Okay.
if you'd like to wait.
If you want to wait, I would appreciate that.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Wait for that blue screen. When you see the mountain again, that's the pause. We are going to have a discussion, long discussion. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay, so self. What is the self that we talk about? Self is the awareness, the consciousness. I'm aware, right? I'm aware that I'm talking to you. I'm aware I can see Joseph, I can see Donna, I can see Jason, I can see Nari, right? And I can understand this. Something within me gives me this understanding, right? So that is the awareness that we are talking about. That is not our eyes. That is not our mind. That is not my lips, not my words. None of that is that, right? Okay, so what do we see on the screen? Obviously, immediately everybody's going to say a rose. And if you close your eyes, you can still know that on the screen there is a rose, right? So what that means is that there is a rose physically that appears to your eye, but you can also imagine that there's a rose. So that ability we have. So I see a rose. My eyes, there's a reflection of the rose through my eye, on my retina, and all that stuff, right? So we now, our mind is interpreting. So another way to say this is, in my mind, I see a rose, right? So that is another way of interpreting the same thing. Now, but is my mind by itself, like, if I took my mind and just kept it by itself, plopped down my brain and say, okay, go see the rose, it won't be able to see the rose. My eye, if I remove it out of the socket and put it down, go see the rose. No, it won't. The eye needs the brain. The brain and eye by itself do not know how to see either. They need something else. There is something that this is one of the most difficult questions that even scientists do not know where this comes from. The so-called awareness, that people can explain that there is chemical reactions and all that stuff and all that, but really we do not know that. So I have a symbol for that, just a random symbol. Don't worry about what that is. I just didn't know what to represent that. And that is the point. It is formless. My awareness is showing me a rose, right? Effectively, that's what is happening. We can say rose is appearing in my awareness, right? So I'm closing my eyes, I open my eyes. It's as if electricity has gone through, I'm the bulb is lighting something. And that awareness has gone out and it is looking at the rose, and then the rose has become aware, right? So from my perspective, rose is appearing in my awareness, right? So I can also say, hey, I can look around the room and it's my awareness that is gathering all the knowledge that is around the room. We can also say rose and my body are in awareness. See, now we are going in a completely la la land here, right? So this is where you really need not just faith, but logic, and it will take a lot of exercises, a lot of little more studying about this to really appreciate this sentence. What this is saying is rose and my body are in awareness, as if awareness was an entity. Rose and body arise in my awareness. This is even more deeper. We talk about birth of universe and all of that stuff, death and Big Bang and all of that. This is way deeper than that, right? So here what we are saying is we literally give rise to the universe, the so-called universe. We are the creators of universe, literally every time. Now, this is a bit more deeper, but suffice to say that we know that there is something called as consciousness. We talk about it, that kind of makes my mind aware, my eyes aware. I can talk, I can move my arms and all of that stuff, right? So what Vedanta is proposing is that this is all there is. Consciousness is all there is. Let's say there was no consciousness, there was no humanity, there was nothing. Then it doesn't matter, right? A tree falls in forest, there's nobody to hear, nobody cares. There's no tree, right? But if you're there, somebody listens to that tree that is falling, then yes, the tree exists and it has fallen. But here, so that's why here what it is saying is that there is all this is just awareness, consciousness. And this kind of radical thinking is, it takes some time to like kind of really understand what the intent of it is, not so much in the context of gravity or physics laws or what Newton was trying to say with ether and all of that. That's not the point of it. The point of it is, how does it help me live my life such that I'm happy and I bring about happiness around me? That's the point of it. Okay, and we'll talk more about this. So what does our routine life looks like? We are born, day comes, that's the yellow sign. We wake up, we fall asleep, we see dreams, and then we have deep sleep, right? So effectively, there are 3 states. Every day we are going through this. Every day and every night, every sleep cycle, we are going through this phase. When we are awake, we are looking at rows, or we are giving life to whatever we are looking at effectively. That has some meaning. Our names that are within our universe and the form that is sitting outside, we basically give it the life force effectively, right? So that is the waking state, right? So there are these 3 states that we are going to focus on. The second state is the dream state. Dream state, what happens? Your eyes are closed as if the universe, the forms have gone, but the names still exist within us. Those names are now, our mind is building imagery for us, right? So our mind has thoughts and it is building different scenarios and we are enjoying the dreams. Now remember, the guy who is in the dream state doesn't know about the guy who is in the wakeful state. Why is that? Because we know that when we are dreaming, we are scared. We are sometimes really afraid. We feel like this is a horror that we are living through, or nightmare, right? So the reason they have defined these states like this is that we understand that this is literally 2 different states of us. And they are totally different. They're totally different. And then there is the deep sleep state. Deep sleep state is when even my mind is shut down. And now, what does that mean? What that means is that now you're totally one with yourself. We are going to talk about what that is. There's nothing else exists. Your wife, your husband, whoever, brother, sister, your name, your job, your $1 million house, $1 billion house, none of those things exist really in that state, right? Yet you exist because you wake up in the morning and you say, boy, I slept like a baby. So who says that I slept like a baby? There's something that is aware that these states are coming and going every day. That is called as self, the capital self, or the witness. And what Vedanta proposes is that in that state, really, there's no time. The time stops. And there's no space. There's no really geography there. So it is infinite. That particular thing that is giving you that consciousness is infinite. It's existing everywhere. Has no form. You can't really take a picture of it or anything. And it is also called as Turiya, but that's not the point. Don't get don't worry about that one. But the point is, you go deep sleep, wakeful, deep dream state. That is continuously happening. You're churning through it all the time. And so in all of this so-called reality that we say, hey, I'm holding a cup, right? We think that is real, but that's a conditioned reality, right? So that is something that is based on what we think is wakeful. And so there are 3 roles for our body. One is the physical, which is our transactional reality, life where we buy, sell things and, do activities, love and fall in love, and we have diseases, and all kinds of laws of physics, actions, all those things. And then there is the dream reality, which is subtle. And then there is the no thing, nothing exists in that, right? So that's your deep sleep. Now, a lot of this is explained in something called as Mandukya Upanishad. So if you want to dig deeper, I would say you should pick up this book. Now, why do we not understand this kind of reality? Why can't we take a picture of it, or why don't we really understand this? The best way to realize this is we live in a domain of 4 dimensions: X, Y, Z, and T. I don't know how many engineers are there in the room, but X, Y, Z means space, like height, width, and length, right? So we know that object exists geographically. And then there is time, we can say it happened yesterday, it's going to happen tomorrow. So there's the time axis. Those are the 4 dimensions our mind is able to understand. But this particular self that we are talking about exists in a totally different domain. And we cannot understand that. Now, the best way to understand this analogy is, I don't know how many of you have read this book called as Flatland. I think this was written, oh, you have it. Look at you. It's a beautiful book, beautiful book.
That's a wonderful book. I read it when I was a teenager.
Exactly.
And then I think that's changed me a lot.
It is. It's mind-blowing. It is. And this is the thing, right? I think one of the things that Vedas say is all the rivers lead to ocean. What that means is we all are on our journey. Follow Vedanta or not, you all are going to end up in the ocean. Not that you're going to die, but metaphorically. The Flatland writer, he had nothing to do with Hinduism. He was somewhere in Britain. He has nothing to do with Hinduism. Maybe he did. So what? He got inspired. Yet he wrote a book where what happens is, just so you understand, there is this world of 2 dimensions. And the main character of the book is square. And they don't understand height in that because there's no notion of height. So one day, a sphere comes there. And from square's point of view, it's a circle because, you take a sphere and in the plane, you can only see circle. So the square says, hey, hello, circle. And the sphere says, well, I'm not a circle, I'm a sphere. And I'm going to explain to you. So the square says, what is sphere? There's no such thing as sphere. So the sphere says, no, there sure is. And the sphere kind of moves up and down, from the plane. As he moves up and down, the circle changes its shape. It increases and decreases. And he just completely amazed. The square says, oh my God, how are you doing that? So tell me more about that world, right? Now suddenly he's intrigued and he wants to know more about that world. And that is, in fact, I'm going to bring it back to Katha Upanishad, right? So when you read that, Nachiketa, the little kid in the book, he is that square. He is the one who is talking to death, who is in a different dimension. And he's saying, tell me more about this. And that curiosity is not sort of like a, hey, I know better and I want to find mistakes in your theory. That's not it, right? It's a true curiosity. And that's why in the article, you will see Yama, the Lord of Death, basically says, hey, you're an ideal student and I happen to be an ideal teacher and I'll teach you this. So coming back to this particular thing here. So imagine in the dream reality. Now, why, again, this chart here is helping you understand. Let's say, forget about Vedanta. How can this third-party approach help you live a graceful life? That's the point of this. So you saw a dream last night where a lion was chasing you and you were scared shitless, right? You're running like crazy. And then you wake up and then, oh my God, that was a horrible dream I just saw. And then you tell your wife or your friend or whoever, and then you laugh about it, right? Now, let's say there was an ability. Now you've explained that in real life. Now, let's say you had an ability to kind of go back in time or re-watch that dream with the knowledge that it is a dream, right? Now, when you observe yourself watching that dream and you're scared in the dream person is all scared, but the person who is watching, he knows that's just a dream. And then you laugh about it. I don't know if you've ever visited, I'm sure some of you have visited Disneyland. There's that Fantasmic, right? Where Mickey Mouse is going through the whole thing. And then in the end, it's just a fantasy. It's just a dream. So you observe and you laugh about it. And then you wake up in the morning, boy, that was really interesting how I was running. And I can laugh about that. So this is easy to imagine about a dream world because you come to this other world and you're like, oh, I can feel my arms, I'm happy, this is good. Now, what we are saying is that, what if you also had an ability to observe your day-to-day transactional life also? You can, right? And we do that. Very subconsciously, we do that. But here we give you a vocabulary. Vedanta gives you a vocabulary. It says there's this thing called as Brahman. There's this thing called as Atman. And that is the self. In English, we'll just call it self, capital self. And that is the absolute reality. That is the reality. Everything else that you think is real is not real. That is the reality. Now, from that point of view, that is the same guy who knows that you slept like a baby, right? That is that guy. And we all have that. Right? So from that point of view, you can observe your real life nightmares, real life scenarios, and you can laugh about it. You can say, aha, wow, this is happening to me. Interesting, right? That's what you want to take, or do something about it if you can, but with a different mindset. There's just this funny quote, what is mind? It don't matter. What is the matter? Oh, never mind. So it's just a funny quote that I thought I'll place here. But what is the point of this logic, right? You can take this at a very logical level. Forget about Upanishad, forget about Vedanta. This is really to develop a distance from your mind and body. See, this is going back to that chariot thing in Katha Upanishad they talk about, where they talk about the horses, the reins, and the driver and the passenger. And there, from that perspective, when you develop that distance and control your things, and not get driven by fear or anger, those are the horses that are driving your chariot or, driving your car or whatever. So basically, ultimately, graceful living, maintain your cool. That's the point, just be cool. And then there is all this, there's so much logic and so much depth to this theory. And I would recommend that you go look up Mandukya Upanishad, if you want, we can cover that. But there's all these different kinds of infinite beings called Ishvara, Hiranyagarbha, and Virata. We are not going to cover that. But from our point of view, for our practical purposes, this is enough. As long as we realize that we are a role right now, we are something else. This is a role that we are playing. That's all we need to know from this, right? So what is the purpose of religion then? Now that we know that, oh, this is all that is, okay, great. SK, we are convinced, man, this is awesome. There's no sin involved in this. Nobody's going to judge me. This is great. Well, no, religion is important. Whatever religion you are in, Christianity, Muslim, whatever, doesn't matter. You don't even have to adopt Vedanta. That's not the point. You are still going to be in these different phases with these religions. You are living your life with or without religion. You're going to have suffering. You have bondages. Means, hey, I love my kid. I can't let my kid go. This is, in fact, my real life experience. So when I came to Vedanta, my daughter was leaving home. So she was going to college, and it was an empty nest syndrome for me. And I had never lived my life without kids. And it was a very, very much of a sorrowful experience for me. Like, I was really, really sad. And I was in like tremendous darkness at multiple points in my life. And that was one of them. And so there was that bondage, like I really was wanting to be with my daughter, and didn't really realize that, she needs to be in the college, and that, that is a life that she wants. Now, it is easy for somebody from outside. Like if this was happening to a friend of mine, I would say, what are you doing, man? You know, you just be cool, right? And that is the point. Like I had to just watch myself and say, hey, you know, be cool. And Vedanta actually helped me quite a bit there. And then we have all these phenomena through religion, like salvation, freedom, moksha, nirvana, like all of those things, right? They all basically are going up this ladder. And throughout all of this process, you know, like we talked about, make sure you have, you know, there's some kind of devotion, some kind of action. Of course, action you can't avoid, and have some exercise, right? Concentration, you know, humility, and balance in your life. And then you can approach the self. Now, what is happening in our individual bodies, right? Our body has senses and things, and I call it like space, you know, like this is what defines my body. You know, it could be a lot of things. It's just my hands, or, you know, we could include a house in that as well. Then there's the brain where our mind is, right? We think. And then there is thoughts, and a lot of the times, at least in Vedanta, there are books again on that, where they prove the mind exists only because we understand this notion of time. Every time we talk about past or we talk about future planning, that's when mind is alive, and mind is super happy. Ton of chatter around that, right? If you're sitting with a friend, you say, hey, you know, like remember that thing, and you know, then you go back and then you start talking about that story. Now, once you have narrated that story, the other person has to do a one-up story, right? Then they go back in their past, and then they say, look, my story is even better than yours. And then the discussion goes on where people are just sharing the past with each other. Or we are planning about the future. But there are times when, you know, the running experience that I said, the runner's high, or when you're playing basketball, when you're in zone, you're not narrating any story about your past, nor are you planning for future, yet there is bliss. Mind has been literally killed at that point. It is shut down. And because time has been squeezed, right? There's no more time. And then we have the brain, we have intellect, and that little c, we know, right? Even without Vedanta, we know that we are conscious beings. And we know that when there is a robot, you know, who can move its arms, we know that that thing is not conscious. It can move its arms, but it's not conscious. We are conscious. There's something that makes us different from this other robotic thing. So what is our state today? Our ego, our suffering, our self, lowercase self, is basically a function, you know, whoever are math experts here, dx, dy, dz, dt, dc. What that means is change in space, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, and time, change in space and time. And then there is a little bit of consciousness change, up or down. And what we are talking about is sit quiet, as be in your religion, whatever religion it is, and let it stop the space for you. Stop the time for you. As you stop all of that, you're going to reach into another level of consciousness. And that is the capital C. And now we are talking about that self. Once you reach there, you're not going to worry about geography, the space, neither are you going to worry about time. And this is the answer that the Lord of Death gives to Nachiketa. So Nachiketa asks him, hey, how can I live? You know, what is this death? What happens after death? He says, you're asking the wrong, I mean, he doesn't say it that way, but he says, let me explain you about death. And you know that those 3 lines that I talked to you about earlier, every day, every sleep state, every waking state, we are dying and we are getting rebirth. That is a much more deeper understanding of this. Every day we are facing this death. It's not just when we are completely lost consciousness. So the point is that every day, you know, whatever we are today, we are nothing like that. You know, it is easy for us to say, you know, 20 years ago, look, that's what me was back then, right? So that body is gone. This is a different body today. every day, different cells, different organization, different stuff that we get, right? So it's just a jacket, basically. Our body is a jacket. So if you are, the point of this is, if you are somebody, if you are somebody, you are always going to be disturbed. If you say, hey, I have this physical thing, when I twist it, it is going to hurt me, right? In that sense. So if you have that body, if you really, that ego, if you have ego, you're letting somebody hurt it, right? If you totally kill the ego, nobody's going to hurt you, right? You're not going to feel it. You're going to be like, okay, I don't care. But so the point of this whole thing exercise is just be a nobody, be an ordinary being, be here and now. Don't think about the past. There's one exercise that one of the Swamis does is he says, I'm going to give you a mantra. And today's date is December 4th, 2021. Everybody repeats that, December 4th, 2021. And then the Swami says, all right, so today you're not going to talk about anything up to this date. You're not going to bring up the past, December 4th, 2021. That's the only day that exists for you. You're going to talk, if you want to talk about anything today, you're going to talk about this day. That's it. So that's another meditative exercise where you totally turn off your past, yesterday, years ago. So that is one way of turning off your sufferings, right? Ultimately, the thing is like, be lighter, right? So religion, God, spirituality, yoga, Zen, all of these are ladders, right? You know, and in the ladder, as you're putting your feet, you put your feet on the next rung of the ladder. Then you have to let go of the bottom rung, right? Then you have to put your feet up, and then you keep on going up. Sometimes what happens is a lot of these yoga meditation practicing people or religious people, they stay stuck because they love the devotion part. They don't realize that it is meant for you to transcend. And then you just stay there. So the idea is let go. Let go of this world, let go of the body, let go of your attachments, be yourself, let go even of Zen, let go of meditation. Don't be enamored by anything in this world and keep moving back to yourself. So how to measure this so-called self-consciousness? The simple question you have to ask is, do I still have likings and dislikings? Do I still go on Twitter and hit likes? If you are, then you didn't get this. Do you still have this need to have like an attraction towards family, you know, importance of people, importance of God, religion, yoga, or Buddha even? Then you don't understand this. So remind yourself constantly, it will happen. You're going to be in this world. All of these things are real. This is going to be there. But every time that happens, observe yourself. Observe, that's the ego that is telling you, hey, Buddha is good, right? You know, or God or family, religion, all that stuff. Remind yourself that, yes, that is good. But remember, infinity is your goal. Adhyatma is what this is called, self-study. It's not about them. My suffering is about me. Always use that line, right? Any suffering that is happening to you, try to work it with yourself, right? Not try. That is, yourself is the reason. And look at everybody, all the other beings also as the same conscious beings, right? And, you know, how to live this life? Serve others with content, gratitude, no ego, excellence in every act, be positive. You know, here that 10-year-old kid was asked to go die, right? His father says, go die, go to hell, basically. What does he do? He says, okay, you know, he's positive about that. He says, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with them. And he goes there, right? Be detached. Don't get attached to anything, be it whatever, you know, like your job, your wife, your husband, nothing. That doesn't mean don't love them. You can still love with a detached mind. Feel the oneness with everything. Be detached observer, yet participate. This goes back to the question that Paul was asking earlier. You can be a detached observer and participate, right? Use this world, use this humanity, use this consciousness to transcend and effectively stop time, right? So we are getting to that blue thing. Just give me one more slide and then we're going to get to the mountain. Desire to continue living in this body, that is our common thing, right? We all want to live long lives. We eat healthy food, nutrition, all that stuff. Desire to enjoy particular things in this world, of this world. Desire to learn is also a desire. Every philosophy, every book that we read and we say, I want to know about that. Yeah, that's all, those are all desires. Again, you're coming at it from the ego point of view. Desire to rid of all these desires, right? There is that desire. That's the final desire. Search for the real freedom. You're not stuck in Jung, or you're not stuck in any of these Sartre or any of that stuff. Now you're okay being yourself, with yourself, right? You know, you have what it takes to live this life happily. You're not going to get bored by yourself. You're going to be okay if a friend doesn't call you, or family doesn't love you, or whatever, you don't get that accolade, whatever, right? So once you get to this final desire that wants to get rid of all the desires and search for that real freedom, everything automatically goes away. You suddenly realize, why do I need to know about that? Why do I need to go to Alaska? I don't need to go to Alaska. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm here. I'm on this planet. I don't need to go to Mars with Elon Musk. I'm here. But many times what happens is this feeling of getting rid of all the desires is such an attractive feeling. Most religions, most yoga practitioners, even Buddhism, they do this, and then you get stuck in this. We build a mountain, we build a castle here, we build our houses here. We say, oh man, I love this feeling. I love this feeling. I just want to stay here. Vedanta is saying, no, this is not it. So you are on a travel, you are on a journey towards this capital self. Have you ever seen people building houses on a bridge? No, you cross and build a house on the other side, or build it on this side. That's okay. But nobody builds houses on the bridge. Self and self, right? You suddenly realize this, trying to get rid of the desires. You understand the difference between self and self. Thou art that, you start realizing. And self is self, you realize my ego is that consciousness that this is talking about. Thou isn't separate from that, right? First, thou art that, but thou aren't separate from that, right? This is another level. And then you go to the final state. Actually, there are more states about that, but this is good enough for us, where there's nothing else alone, right? Self is all there is everywhere. And then there is another Upanishad that I wanted to just present here. Many times people come to a certain stage and they say, hey, I think I got it. And so it says, he who claims that he knows does not know. He who knows that it cannot be known as an object truly knows, right? I mean, this is something like, Brahman is not a form. It's not something that, you say, okay, I got it, but you kind of feel. And in the Katha Upanishad, in that article that you read, a lot of that says to the child, you cannot seek God. God will come to you, or this particular self-consciousness will come to you when you're ready. That's why you got to go through all these phases. It's okay. You have a desire to learn a philosophy. That's okay. You got to get past that. And you will come to a place where suddenly you will realize or Brahman will realize you, right? And you will be that. So don't build a house on the bridge, cross it. So now here we are. Now Lipo again says, hey, I'm lost. I'm not here. I'm vanished. Only mountain exists. So I think once you understand this kind of a way of thinking, everything that you read about Zen, Buddhism, story, even Gatsby, like books, they're marvelous books, right? You suddenly have a very different, beautiful understanding of these beautiful literatures that people have written. Okay. Questions? Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
I have one quick question and then one kind of rambling observation. So let me start with the quick question, which is, you were talking about exercise. Is meditation sort of the same as exercise, but without physical movement?
Absolutely, it's a mental exercise, yes. And we will talk about how that meditation, we understand meditation as putting some music on and trying to blame yourself, like when a thought comes, some people think that is meditation. Like, oh, I can't stop my thinking, and then you get all angry and stuff. So that's not meditation. So according to Vedanta, there is a certain practice. So we will talk about that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then as far as the rambling observation, I really enjoyed this presentation. Great presentation. Thank you for doing this. But so you say, the rose exists in consciousness, awareness, and body exists in awareness. And I guess you would also say then that mind exists in awareness, or at least certain portions of mind, right? Memory and emotions and various portions of mind exist in awareness. And this is just fascinating to me, because this is a question that I've struggled with in the last few months, as far as we're so coming at this from sort of a Western philosophy tradition. We're so used to thinking of mind and consciousness awareness as being sort of the same thing. It's a really fascinating thing to try to sort of tease these apart into, what parts of mind really are only in awareness and what is really part of awareness. And that's my rambling observation.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call it rambling. Actually, you are on the right track. Once you realize that difference, you cannot go back. Once you realize that, now you are already at that stage where it is easy for you to separate now. You will constantly observe yourself. So there is no practice, right? You're not doing any practice. You now suddenly, that it has clicked you. There is awareness. And my mind is something different from that awareness. My actions are different from that awareness. And look at what I'm doing. Is this right? Now you're always going to do that without any practice, no Zen, no meditation, none of that stuff, right? So you're on the right path. Yeah. Claudio.
Yes, you mentioned the dream world and the physical world. You imply that both are in a way indistinguishable. We can replay our experiences, right, in both realms and laugh about them. There's an implication there that neither realm is actually real. The dream world with the lower self, the self of the lower S, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Neither realm is real. Oh,
yeah. So you're absolutely right. I think I skipped over that part. So thank you for reminding me on that. So the dream world and the waking world. I just didn't want to throw this bomb because I thought that would be a little too hard to digest for people. So you typically need some more exercise before you want to buy into this theory that everything that you're looking at is imaginary. It's hard to deny, right? I'm holding a cup. It's really hard to deny that. It exists. It exists for all the real reasons. But what we are saying is, as we are observing something, there is a certain way to interpret certain, things that affect our life's choices. Like this is easy thing. This is not hurting me, nor is it hurting my family or anybody, or maybe whatever the contents in this might. But that's not the point. The point is, like, when there is something really crazy going on, or there's a dilemma, or there's a desire, you really want to eat a bucket of ice cream or something like that, right? Those are the times when you want to kind of separate yourself and say, what am I doing? And we're going to come to this thing where we're going to talk about this chariot analogy, and that will really start making this clear. But you're absolutely right. Ultimately, we want to get to a state where we realize that all these roles that we are playing, waker, dreamer, deep sleep, they're all fake. That's why they're called as states. They come and go. Now, this is another thing that you want to remember about Vedanta, is that in Vedanta, what is real is what do they call as reality? They call something reality when that exists from forever, infinity. If something comes and goes, that is not considered as reality according to Vedanta. Okay, so Joseph.
Yes, thank you. This was a really, really good presentation. There's actually a lot to talk about, but I just have a quick question. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on one specific area with the idea that nobody does wrong intentionally, and essentially what what you really if you could go into that a little bit deeper, because there's thoughts of that, and Socrates has spoken about it, obviously, where people they don't do wrong intentionally. They're doing what they feel is in their best interest at that particular moment in time. Is that along the same concepts? We all have the same needs, and we're just meeting those needs in a different way. So that's the idea that nobody's really doing wrong intentionally. So that's a way of actually it allows us to interact with others in a much more meaningful way. So I was just wondering, is that the basic concept? Is it similar to other philosophy? It's very similar to Western philosophy in that regard. Yeah, and there's a couple of other things that I could probably go on about, but
I'll give you a chance, but
sure, that's okay.
This thought, this is beautiful actually. So
I'm sorry, SK, have you done all the presentation or you have more to show?
I have a little more.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So the suggestion is, if you are doing the discussion, you probably can stop the sharing and then.
Yeah. So
up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some more slides. So okay, wrong, right? What do we call as wrong? So when we see something as wrong, that arises from multiple aspects. One is, we know something is right. We know that there is some right way of doing something, and that other person is doing something wrong. We cannot put ourselves in their shoes to understand why are they doing it that way, right? And many times it stems from anger, fear of the other, right? And to really come to a point where you can put yourself in that other person's shoes to understand them needs for you to be extra compassionate. And that is very difficult, very hard. And why are we fearful of the other? Because we think that the world that we know, the luxuries that we know, are all going to be destroyed because of this other person. Whatever they do is going to destroy my existence. So we are afraid, we are holding on to this thing. We are afraid of death, right? All these questions boil down to that one thing, which is death. Once you understand death, once you take away the fear of death, you say, hey, you know what? What Vedanta is trying to say is nobody dies. And if there is death, you're dying. Every day you're dying. So, you have experience of it. So just relax. Once you relax, you can face the thing, right? So there is this beautiful, interview process. In the interview process, the interviewer has already decided that he wants to hire his relative, and the candidate is sitting in the room, so he has to go through the process. So the candidate comes and sits, and then he says, okay, well, I'm in a boat and I'm in the middle of a lake, and I have a cigarette box. I want to light a cigarette. How am I going to do that? I have nothing else. I'm by myself. So this question, no matter what the candidate is going to respond, is not going to help anybody. So he's not going to get the job. He knows that. No, the candidate doesn't know that, right? So candidate goes in without any judgment of the interviewer. So he says, the responder says, the candidate says, I think I have 3-4 solutions for this. So the interviewer says, okay, well, go on. So I'm just going to cover like maybe 1 or 2. So he says, well, you throw the cigarette out in the water, suddenly the boat is going to be lighter Now you have a lighter and you can light the cigarette. And then he says, well, I'm going to hug one of the cigarettes, and then the other cigarette is going to feel jealous and they will burn with jealousy. So he goes with all these things. And the point here being is that he was not really worried if he got the job or not, or maybe he was the candidate, but he was taking it lightly.
Right.
He was just not really imposing any judgment on the interviewer, despite the bad intentions of the interviewer. And what does the interviewer say in that story at the end? You know, forget about my relative. I love you. You made me laugh. I'm going to hire you. Because ultimately,
Right.
people want to work with people who can make them laugh, you know, who they can work with. So that's the intention of, you know, like this thing that where we think that that person is doing wrong, that really comes from this deep fear that we have. And we all are struggle, right? I mean, we look at the world that we live in today. It's horrible. And, you know, we think that the other is wrong, and the divides are just widening like crazy. Okay, so Madeline.
Thank you.
Mhm. Oh, Madeline.
Yes, hi, sorry about that. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I came in late. I had some things I had to take care of. I thought the reading was really extraordinarily beautiful, the Katha Upanishad. And I had some, I know it's divided into sections. I can't really look at it at the same time as I'm looking at this during the meetup. But as I recall, basically the first part was a sort of narrative between Yama and the child. And then the second part was Yama saying, first he says, no, I don't want to give an explanation, but then he does give an explanation. I thought the image of the thumb in the heart was really extraordinary.
Mhm.
I never encountered it before. And in the along the lines of metaphors we live by, the Lakoff and Johnson book. So I started thinking, okay, what else would be about that size that could fit in the heart? Something that's outside the body might be, I thought of okra. I also thought, okay, maybe the ear, but that's a sense organ. And the thumb is really something that we do things with, but without thinking. Something that's present in our body our whole lives. And it's true, the heart is a muscle, but I think that this is metaphorical. And I'm wondering if the thumb in the heart is a recurring theme in the Upanishads, or if it's just in this one.
Oh yeah, so there is a whole Upanishad that deals with this so-called jiva, is what it is called, the life force. So the way we are born, there is a whole thing about how consciousness splits into this so-called inner being and outer being. And what we are only aware of is the outer being, you know, the fact that I am conscious, I have a job, I love you, I have a family, right? So this is me being conscious of my things and me being egoistic about my thing. Who is that consciousness? There is that thumb size object is what they say. Why do they say that? In my opinion, they say that because as a human being, our mindset are so geared towards object-based realities. It is easier to tell us that, hey, there is such a thing in there. And then eventually, as you start thinking more into the Vedanta practice, you realize that doesn't exist either. In fact, that doesn't exist at all, that object. And obviously, we don't see it physically either. So yeah, it is. There is a whole. There are other Upanishads that you can explore more about jiva. Nari.
Yeah, I know you touched a bit on dreams, and when I was younger, I used to, from relatives and so people put so many emphasis on dreams that they do mean something, and you think about it. As I age, I realize that no, I don't trust what I'm dreaming, and I don't put any emphasis in it. So you're basically saying that the dream is fake. We shouldn't put any emphasis on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Vedas say that, right?
In fact, you want to go even one step further, is don't put too much interest or faith in real life either, because it can be deceiving. Your waking life itself is deceiving. These are the images that your mind is processing, and your mind's biases is building a story that you want to believe. That is your waking life. Forget about the dreaming life. Dreaming life, it is easy for us to realize that that is a dream and we can forget about it. Now, there are people who build a whole career out of revealing your dreams and all that stuff. That's fine. I think any tool, let's say Jesus, let's say whoever, or Krishna, Rama, Muhammad, whoever, they might be real, they might not be real. It doesn't matter. But for this small life of 80 years, 90 years, whatever I am alive for, if that object, imaginary object, gives me a way to live blissfully, good. If you want to interpret dreams and it gets rid of your sorrow, go for it. But you are on that stream, that water stream. Everybody is a water stream. All these water streams are going to come to that ocean. That ocean is that consciousness. So what Krishna says is, don't worry about rushing. But here's the philosophy. You want to rush it, rush it. But eventually, everybody on this planet is going to realize their self-consciousness. We are on a journey. We all are on a journey. So there's nothing to be criticized. Because you are all, every act that you're doing is God or consciousness acting through you because you're conscious. So there's nothing to be criticized in Vedanta. So your dream world, if that makes you happy, man, go for it. But also, if you wanted to transcend, if you want to go one step above, just think, it takes some time, some meditation to realize, my real life is also potentially a dream.
Okay, thanks. I know there's a lot of hands up, but my second question, which I don't know if it would be to the end of your presentation, I wanted to ask what the Vedas says about if there is a soul.
Soul is something that we have. It's not the self that I'm talking about. It's not the consciousness. Soul is yet another one of those imaginary things that that kind of is a way to explain our insecurities about life effectively. And then there are horror movies and this and that, all kinds of stuff, right? So there's.
But is there anything in the Vedas that mention it? The Vedas doesn't mention it at all. Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Now it might come in some story form, but and a lot of people, when they hear Atman, or which is self that I'm talking about, they think that they are talking about soul, but these are the people who were influenced by Western thought process. Remember, India was invaded 22 times in their living history. India never invaded anybody. So there is a lot of these external influences, even in our thinking process. There's a lot of ways when we think in Persian mindset, because there's a lot of Turkish Empire and all of that stuff influenced our thinking process. British way of thinking, right? So there's a lot of this colonialism, all of that stuff exists in our thinking process. So in fact, Britishers also kind of, they understood what Upanishads had to say, and to control the population, they abused it. And they started enforcing this thing about, hey, Hindus this and caste this and that, and this is that. So they really went to an extreme to really tell people that you're separated like this. And that was horrible for the Indian population, but they were already broken apart. So what British did is they further divided them. by making this available. And then soul and all of that stuff, kind of came into the society, and then, people were afraid of ghosts and, Atma and all that stuff. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. All right, Ivanek.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have a question about what you were saying about attachment, and I've heard this in other places, and I guess my mind can't get around the concept, but what I understand of it is that when you're talking about it, you're talking about like you still love your people, like your family and your friends, but you're not attached to them. Does that mean that, like, if you didn't have that person in your life would still be good, but you'd rather have them with you, but you're not attached to the idea that they're there? Or is it something else?
Absolutely. I think you got the point of it, but I think it's really hard. And I went through that, right, as my daughter was leaving the house. So let's talk about that just for a bit. Attachment is not about the other person. You want to call it love, but really it is more of your need. So when you start looking at it that way, it becomes, you realize that you're being selfish to this other person. You are not letting them be free, and you're not letting them explore. There are so many different syndromes that, the pervert ways of looking at this, right, that have come about, like Munchausen and all of that stuff, right, where the mom really is suffocating the kid. Attachment is really a selfish need. You think it is love. So one of the things that they say is there is subject, action, object. I love you. When you say I love you, that's not loving. If you really deeply think about it, when you say I love you, there are lots of other connotations to that statement, which is I love you, so you better be nice to me. It's about me. So when the I drops and you drops, what remains is love. So think about mother and child love. Or think about a husband and wife love. Husband and wife love, every phone call comes in, end of the phone call, you end with I love you. You want to always confirm with the other person that I do love you. But when between the mother and child, yeah, you do say that. But growing up, I can guarantee you, in our Indian family, never. That was never ever said. In India, they say, "Main tumse pyar karta hu." That is, I mean, it is there. It's there. The phraseology is there. But in Western world, I love you is so common that, it's just a common phrase that is thrown around. But again, going back to the mother and the child, when the child is playing on the ground, and the child has some ability issues, like as he's climbing the ladder on the seesaw or whatever, a slide or something, and he is climbing, the person who is not the mother, they can observe the child and they can say, hey, look, there's some problem with that kid. And now they might not say it out of civility, right? But mother, what does the mother say? Mother always says, boy, you're great, you're awesome, all right, woohoo, right? So the mother is thrilled with every little thing that kid does, no matter how idiotic or how silly that is. And that joy, the mother has forgotten that she's the mother, the kid has forgotten that it's the kid. The subject and object vanish. When the subject and object vanish, or this is in fact the notion that I am trying to drive here, ego and other, when they dissolve in that infinite self, all our actions are about just the action itself. And then now it suddenly becomes a pure action. And there is no need for you to win something nor lose something. And so it just becomes about, so that's how you want to get to the attachment. So if you want to be with somebody, you want to really ask yourself, is this your need? Versus, what is the other person thinking? How can I help him? Really, the serving mindset is so helpful. How can I serve you? Even the boss can say that to their employee. The question should be, hey, employee, how can I serve you? Tell me. That is the best team building exercise. Not you do the job, right? So anyways, so that's attachment for you.
Thank you. That really clarified it for me.
Yeah. Okay, Jason.
Thank you. I think the last Evanik asked about the soul question, right? The soul, actually, the Chinese soul, also the same situation. I like to say, oh, Chinese has no soul. American think my answer is crazy, and Chinese are kind of angry. So, but I know what you mean. So same thing as you talk about love, right? And the Buddhism also said love is one of the suffering. Okay, and that's very difficult to explain, for the Westerner. Okay, that's one of the suffering is love. Okay, so the reason I raised my hand is here. The screen you are showing the Levi's point. I just want to know, where did you get it? Okay, and do you know this one before? Because I read this point. Okay, that's a Chinese point, very famous point, and then. I never think about the consciousness or whatever. I just think about the beautiful scene or whatever. I just want to know, how did you get this one? And is there any text talk about this one's associates with the consciousness or Hinduism?
No, okay. This has nothing to do with consciousness or Hinduism. This was a way for me to take an interval. It was a way for me to take a break in my presentation, present it. And I actually was going to take a quote from Gatsby. There are lots of beautiful quotes in Gatsby. And the point of it was, as we progressed through presentation, I was going to, if we had a longer day, my exercise would have been, okay, go tell me, what does this mean? So few people will raise their hand and then they explain this. Then we go through the presentation and then, okay, what is the understanding now you have about this? And believe me, people will have all kinds of answers because, this opens up a channel for thought process. And I'm telling you, after this presentation, you don't have to read any Vedanta, but every time you read a book, any book, you're going to be starting to observe these qualities in people. And, a lot of these beautiful authors that we have, they have touched this self. And that's where they're getting all these beautiful things. And this particular line, I knew this because I have been just following Zen and all that stuff, right? Buddhism. So I thought this was beautiful. I just got it from Google. But the point of this was for me to explain that this can be beautiful, but it could also be pointing to us. This mountain that this Lipo is talking about is me. I have forgotten myself that, he says, the birds have vanished into the sky, and now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and me. Mountain is my body, and me is that self. Until only the mountain remains. Now, this is my understanding, where I have forgotten who I was, who I am, the self or consciousness. And it's now just me, this limited body that I think is me, is this is it. So that was another interpretation for me for this. And then the thing that I was explaining to Ivanek about how the subject and object have to vanish. So here he says, I vanished. But you don't have to vanish, right? You're enjoying this mountain. What if the mountain also vanished, right? You're not enamored by mountain. And you're just enjoying it. You're in a sort of a bliss. So what that means is you don't even have to be in a beautiful setting like this mountain. You could be looking at a trash can. You could be sitting in a slum and you could be in bliss. That is the state that we want to be in. You're not going to always get a snow-covered mountain to stare at. How do you then come to that bliss. So that is the understanding that I was trying to drive at with the attachment principle. Okay, so Fred.
Thank you for a great presentation. I was interested in your discussion of the identification of the dream world with the physical world. It struck me, it's corollary here. I was always impressed by the profound influence and interest of the pioneers of modern physics with Hinduism. For example, Robert Oppenheimer learned Sanskrit so he could read the Bhagavad Gita. Erwin Schrödinger finished each of his scientific presentations with a slide that said Brahman equals Atman. Mm-hmm. And your presentation helped me kind of put that together, and maybe the reason for that affinity is the illusory nature of reality at a fundamental level, and that subatomic physics is so bizarre, it might as well be a dreamlike state to us. And yet that dreamlike state is, in some sense, our underlying reality. And our ordinary perceptions are illusory in that respect. And so what in that sense is illusion and what is reality? And is there a distinction? And I wonder if Brahman equals Atman relates to that the way you make that equation is via that unity is via the understanding of the material world as illusion. I wonder if you could comment on that.
I'm sorry, I think, so there's Brahman and Atman, and you are saying that they are equal. So I think there is a lot of, I think from this limited presentation point of view, what we should really understand is you can really spend your whole lifetime to really dissect this Brahman, Atman, from words point of view, from Sanskrit point of view, and all of that stuff. Really, in a very simple language, Brahman, Atman is something that we have forgotten. We have forgotten that, and what Vedanta is trying to tell you is that there is something beyond our brain, beyond our intellect, that is the driving force for us. And remember that. That's what you really are. Everything else is illusion. The Brahman, Atman, whatever you want to call it, Atman is basically my awareness. Brahman is the infinite awareness. Now I could say I am the infinite awareness too, right? And that's fine. So people use